the scene in the movie that was the hardest to shoot, I would say, was it's essentially it's kind of the breakup scene. It's the Dark Night of the Soul scene where their two characters are the farthest apart emotionally. Um, we shot that scene the very first day of filming.
Welcome to Survive the Shows.
Welcome everyone to this exciting interview segment. Welcome everyone to this exciting interview segment here at Survive the Shows. I'm Desira, and today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Ryan Carnes, star of the great American movie, Christmas movie, the first one of this year for me, A Wisconsin Christmas Pie. Join us as we delve into Ryan's insights into his character and the challenges of filming this movie. Thank you for being here with us, Ryan. How did you first hear about A Wisconsin Christmas Pie, and what made you want to say yes to this role?
Yeah, so I heard about Wisconsin Christmas Pie through my agent. I received the audition through my one of my agents, my New Mexico agent, Carissa Mitchell, at Mitchell and Associates Talent, and I got the audition for self tape, which is pretty much how all auditions are nowadays. And I read the script in advance of the audition, I believe, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really charming story with a lot of hope. There's a theme, definitely, I would say, of second chances. Getting second chances at love and second chances at life in certain ways. And I really enjoyed the setting. It's set in Door County, Wisconsin, which I had never heard of. And so I looked up Door County. Excuse me. I looked up Door County online, and I saw how beautiful it was. And there were all these. I could tell in the script there were a lot of local references, to Door County, to Wisconsin, things that are very unique and known about Door County, Wisconsin. And I just thought it was really charming. The characters were very well defined, and I really resonated with my character Mitch. He seemed like a very grounded, salt of the earth guy who is honest, has a lot of integrity, cares about his family, and loves where he lives.
Amazing. And what do you find the most surprising or compelling about the movie and your character?
Uh, I don't want to give too much away about the movie, so I guess there's a couple things that I won't say in case you have any viewers who haven't seen it yet and you plan to see it.
Yeah.
I think what I would say the most compelling thing about him is that ultimately, he doesn't put his own desires and needs, really desire. He doesn't put his own desire in front of Emma's desire. When they come down, they spend a lot of time together and come to a place where Emma has a big choice to make.
Yeah.
And Mitch is really supportive of her happiness. He wants her to be happy no matter what choice she makes. And I thought that was a very selfless thing to do. And I think it demonstrated his character and his integrity very well.
Great. And what was your preparation process for this role? Did you do any specific research into baking or something else about Wisconsin culture?
I personally did not do any research into baking. Katie, who plays Emma, Katie Leclerc, she's actually a very skilled baker in her real life, in her personal life. She's quite talented. So she had all that perfectly well handled. I didn't need to research any of the baking. One thing I was surprised about was that in the movie, and I don't think I'm giving too much away here. One of the secret ingredients for the pie is cheese, actually, replacing replacing a certain amount of the butter in the crust with cheese.
Yeah.
And I had never heard of that before, but it turns out it works really, really well. I had there were so many cherry pies on set. There was no shortage of cherry pie. So I did have a bite of a taste of the cherry pie that you'll see in the movie with the cheese and the crust, and it was quite good. And then also, I'm a big whipped cream fan. I love whipped cream. So there's, I think it's mascarpone whipped cream that's
Yeah.
used part of the recipe. That whipped cream was like, chef's kiss, delicious.
Amazing. And so the movie centers on the signature pie. How did the prop baking element influence your performance or your character's relationship with Emma?
I'm sorry, can you ask that again?
And how did the baking process element influence your performance on your character relationship with Emma?
Well, I think anytime there's someone who's a good chef or a good baker, I mean, that's something certainly that appeals to me that I'm drawn to. And I think the same could probably be said for Mitch. I'm sure it was just one of the many things that Mitch loved about Emma, and that there was probably part of um, the long list of charming qualities that she possessed that made him more attracted to her, and ultimately fall back in love with her because they were high school sweethearts.
Great.
So I would imagine that Emma, even back then in high school, had a proclivity for baking, and so I'm certain that he knew the skill she possessed in that realm.
Amazing. And which scene in the movie felt the hardest to shoot and why?
Oh gosh. So the scene in the movie that was the hardest to shoot, I would say, was it's essentially it's kind of the breakup scene. It's the Dark Night of the Soul scene where their two characters are the farthest apart emotionally. Um, we shot that scene the very first day of filming
Yeah.
in a blizzard. It was snowing very hard. It was very cold, and it was the first day of filming. And we were like, "Wow, welcome to Wisconsin!" And we didn't have to fake snow that day. Nature did it for us, and it was hard. It was hard. I mean, it was great. It was perfect for what the scene was, and it was perfect for the movie. But it's very difficult because it was so cold, and because there was so much wind. We were standing out on a basically like a pier. I think if I remember, a point at least that extends out into the water. So because we were on the bay, it was even colder and even windier. And, at a certain point, when it's that cold, it gets really hard to speak. It gets really difficult to talk.
Yeah.
And it's also difficult to feel, it's also very difficult to feel emotionally because all I was thinking about was like, wow, it's really cold. Wow, I can't wait to get warm. So it's like, one's focus becomes all about sort of like survival, really, like, like the body is struggling to stay warm and survive.
Yeah.
So it makes it really difficult to like, be connected with the other person, feel the appropriate emotions for that moment. But I know that it served the movie really well, and the scene looks great. So it all worked out in the end.
Amazing. And on the other hand, which moment was the most fun on set and why?
Hmm. The most fun. I would say, gosh, there were a lot of fun moments. It's really hard to pick just one. Can I give you a few?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I would say one of the most fun moments was the party scene, just because everyone was there. The whole cast was there. Um, that it's fun just because we all got to be together. I don't know, there weren't too many scenes in the movie, at least, where we all got to be together and just hang out on set. One other scene that was like that was, which was also really really fun, was the pie competition scene. Amon Green from the Green Bay Packers is the guest celebrity judge, so he was there. That was a lot of fun. And then I would say the other scene, it's kind of a compilation of scenes, is when Emma and I go, when I pick Emma up for our first date. And then I don't want to give too much away, but Mitch, my character, picks her up for our first date, and he does it in a very romantic, kind of funny way. And then they do some exploration around Door County, Wisconsin, to a lot of the most known, sites in that area, and that was really really fun because we just got to ride around and have a laugh and go to all these cool spots. So I think that was another really fun one for me.
Amazing. And how would you describe the chemistry between Mitch and Emma? Were there any improvised moments that made it into the final cut?
Yeah, the chemistry was great. Katie, who plays Emma, Katie and I got along really well from the very beginning. In fact, before we went to Wisconsin to film, we both met up for lunch in Los Angeles, and found out we've both been doing it a long time, industry veterans, and have had a lot of similar experiences in the entertainment industry in LA, and have some knew some people in common. So right away she and I clicked, and I think we both knew it was going to be fun working with each other. It was going to be easy. No, neither one of us are divas. And then on set, it was great. Katie's really talented and extremely professional, and brought a lot of really nice nuance to the character, and was also really supportive of everything that I wanted to bring to my character. We really clicked, and had a great time. And I know Katie said there's the scene where we do share a kiss at some point, and that was a really sweet scene. And I know she told a story in one of our previous interviews that whenever we did that scene, she was kind of like, the first take of that scene, after the scene, she looked over at the director, and he looked at her, and they were like, they sort of like this, had this knowing between them that this was a special movie, and that the chemistry between she and I was going to be really really palpable, and translate really well to the screen. So yeah, it was super easy working with her. She's awesome, and I would love to work with her again sometime.
That's great. And the movie mixed holiday warmth with personal stakes. How did you balance the lighter, festive tone with emotional depth in your performance?
That's a great question. I think actually those two work hand in hand really well. Um, I remember early in my career, I had an acting teacher who, when he was trying to get, like a sad, like genuine, authentic sadness, tears from someone, he would often have them laugh first. He would say, "Okay, laugh. I just want you to laugh." And there's this remarkable thing that happens a lot of times where if someone's laughing, it actually makes the grief and the sadness more accessible. It's kind of like it's a way in. It's kind of like a backdoor into the grief and the sadness. So I actually think joy, and the more, like you were saying, the heavier, more personal elements of like the deeper things. I actually think joy, laughter, all of those emotions are actually quite connected to and make it easy to access a lot of the other depth. So it was pretty seamless, I would say. Especially when you're laughing and having a great time with someone and with people, you're forming a connection. You're forming a bond. And then when it's time to switch into or transition into deeper emotions, maybe more challenging emotions, there's a safety there. There's a trust between the actors, and so yeah, it was. I wouldn't say that I ever felt challenged by that at all. It all felt very seamless and very very real.
Amazing. And did the director give you specific notes that changed the way you approach a scene? Can you share some example?
Oh gosh, it's a little. It's we shot that movie a number of months ago, so
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll be able to recall an exact moment, but John Simpson is our director. He's great. It was my first time working with John. It was Katie's fifth time working with John.
Oh,
This was their fifth movie together. It was my first movie with him, and he's just such a great guy. Just he's has this incredible infectious positivity and optimism about him just in general as a person, and he brings that to set every single day. And I pulled John aside one day and I said, man, I just want to thank you because it's obvious to me that the tone, like the attitude that you bring to set and the tone that you set as the director, as the captain of this ship, it trickles down into everyone else. And that everyone on the set worked really well together. Um, sometimes on movie sets there can be different departments will be in conflict. There's infighting on set between different departments. They're sort of competing for, I don't know what they're competing for sometimes. Um, but on this set, there was none of that. Everybody worked really, really well together, and as a team, there was incredible teamwork, and that started with John as a director. I mean, he really set the tone for that. Um, as far as your specific question, actually, yeah. So there were times when I really like rolling up my sleeves and getting into deep, uncomfortable emotions. And the movie before this movie that I did was an independent drama, a lot of heavy emotions, a lot of like really kind of challenging themes and subject matter to deal with. And I love that stuff. I like going deep. This is a Christmas romance, so it's much lighter. And there were multiple times on set when John came up to me and he was like, just just keep it a little lighter, Ryan. Just maybe smile a little bit more, maybe just keep it lighter. Like that was the note that I got multiple times from John, was not so serious, basically.
yeah.
And I laughed about it, and I would always sort of laugh at myself and go, "Oh yeah, that's right. Thanks for the reminder, John. We're shooting a Christmas romance, not a heavy independent drama." I know I have the tendency to go there. So yeah, thanks for the reminder. So I would say, that's the one that really stands out to me, was it wasn't a unique one-time note. It was actually a recurring note that he had to give me on multiple occasions throughout the filming.
Good, great. And were there any wardrobe or physical choices, like hair, posture, or prop, that helped you look into Mitch, into this character?
Oh, you ask such great questions. Another a really good question. Yeah, so because Mitch is a fisherman. He works with a family fishery. Very, very you know, just working class guy. Um, so who isn't really caught up in fashion or trends? That was something that I thought about as an actor and discussed with the wardrobe department was like, I think, Mitch is not a guy who's caught up, and not that, people who are fishermen, they can totally be into trends, right? Like it's not, I'm not categorizing, I'm not generalizing here, but for me, for Mitch's character, based on, I grew up, I would say similarly to Mitch. My family had a business. It was a, locally owned, family operated business. Our business happened to be quite blue collar. So I related to Mitch in that sense. And, I'm from also from a small town. And so there were some things that I definitely wanted to make sure that I, imbued into Mitch, which were like, yeah, that's he's Mitch isn't a character who necessarily dresses to impress. He dresses for function.
Yeah.
It's like function over appearance, over anything flashy. Just very salt of the earth, grounded character. And so, yeah, we made sure that the jeans that Mitch wore, they weren't trendy. They weren't like skinny jeans. They weren't, wide-legged jeans. They weren't anything that's remotely trendy. They were just like jeans, like that was one of the things that we definitely talked about. His hat that he wore from the fishery, it's super beat up, worn in, broken in, because it's the hat that he wears every single day. It shouldn't be nice and clean and neat. It should have some character to it. It should be well worn. Um, so that was another thing. And then the boots. I actually wore my own boots that are, I think most of the movie I was wearing. I have two different pairs of boots I think that I wore in the movie, but one Red Wing work boots. So that was another thing. It was like I think most of the time, unless he's like dressing up for a fancy occasion, most of the time Mitch is going to be in his work boots.
Yeah.
Obviously not as a fisherman. He has like, there's a particular um, overall that fishermen wear that have boots attached to them. They're like that they're in water in. I'm not talking about those boots, but just like his everyday boots. That's how my dad was. I mean, my dad was, unless he was with me at a practice, for baseball or basketball or something, he wore his work boots every single day, all the time. And that's another thing we talked about was the footwear. It's like, yeah, it's the guy has his pair of work boots that he goes to and from the job in, and that's what he wears most of the time. So yeah, there were definitely things like that we talked about. And then aging, we made sure that the jeans were aged down so they weren't crispy and brand new, because that wouldn't have been true to the character. So yeah, there were a lot of things like that we definitely talked about. And then one more thing, like with the hair, that was one thing I said, I don't want Mitch to be perfectly coiffed, because I don't think that he's a guy who necessarily cares about that. Like we wanted the hair to kind of be a little bit more loose and a little bit have a more of like a lived in feel, and not be so like, perfect and well crafted and well coiffed. So that was another thing. Yeah.
Great. And what was it like filming in the locations used for the movie? Did the setting itself add energy to your scenes?
Oh my gosh. I loved filming in Door County. One of my favorite places I've ever filmed, maybe my favorite, no shade to anywhere else that I've ever filmed, but it was incredible. Just, it's so charming. The people there were wonderful. Could not have been more hospitable. They were so supportive of the film. The community really came out in a big way to support the movie. And, we as the actors and crew, we were very well taken care of by everyone there. Um, I love my room actually. So we stayed at this place called the Hillside Waterfront, which is there's like 6 rooms in it. It was a very old building that Diane, the proprietor, converted into an inn basically. So it's small, quaint, and my room overlooked. I don't remember if it was the Green Bay side of the Lake Michigan. I think it was the Green Bay side, Green Bay, Wisconsin. It overlooked the bay, and I would have these incredible vistas. Really any time of day. It was just I said over and over, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. I just want to stay here. Maybe someday I would love to own property there even. But I cannot wait to go back. We're actually having a screening of the movie. We're 3 screenings. So they started as 1 screening, and the response was so overwhelming by the community. So many people wanted tickets. They've added 2 more screenings. So we're actually having a screening later in the year for the 3 screenings for the movie, and I'm so excited to go back. And then I'm also really excited to go back sometime in the summer. We were there. We filmed in March and April, like second half of March, first half of April. And the whole time people kept saying, "Well, you have to come back during the summer. You have to come back during the summer. That's the time that it's the most beautiful." And I said, "Well, if the summer is better than it is here right now, I'm gonna be blown away." So I think next, summer of 2026, I would love to go back sometime because it was just fantastic. I cannot say enough positive things about Door County, Wisconsin.
Amazing. And the holiday romance feel good genre has a devoted audience, as I think you know. What do you hope viewers will take away from this particular story?
Well, I hope that a few things. I hope that people will go visit Door County, Wisconsin, because it's a remarkable place.
Yeah,
Um, so that's one thing. I hope that it'll help people just feel good and feel joy and feel connected to their own families. There's a lot of challenge in the world right now, and I know, economically, people have been having a really hard time for a while now, just generally speaking. And there are a lot of things, there are a lot of negative, challenging things that we can all focus on. This movie, I believe, and I hope for everyone who watches it, helps people focus on all of the good in life and all of the positive aspects of life. And, too, I think one of the things that I hope people get out of it is a reminder to just focus on one's family, focus on the people that are around us, that love us, that we love, and focus on the local community. Because that's really where I think a lot of change can happen. A lot of change can take place and improvements can take place, is like really focusing on the positive aspects, focus on the good, and focus on, the local community where immediate impact is felt. And then finally, I'll say that I hope, for anybody out there who, has maybe given up on love or, hasn't yet met their person. I hope it's a reminder that there's someone out there for everyone. And even sometimes when we've gone through really tragic, awful, horrible things, on the other side of that, there's still love to be had, and connections to be made, and happy endings to be written.
I agree. Amazing. So, change our subject a little bit, talking about your career in general. Um, Looking at your body of work, how does this role compare to others? Did it push you into a new territory as an actor?
Well, I've been really fortunate to have a variety of roles
Yeah.
throughout my career. I've done a lot of different things, which has been really, really wonderful. And some of my favorite projects are films like this because, filming a Christmas movie, everyone was happy on set all the time. Everyone was sort of even though it wasn't the holidays, everyone was we couldn't help but be in a festive mood, with all of the lights, and it was still snowing in Wisconsin. Um, so, this was definitely one of my favorite projects, and I would say it was I told John, the director, this. I want to say it was the least stressful project of my entire career, just because there were so many elements that made it just easy and graceful. I think the hotel was very, very comfortable. It was very quiet. Filming on location like that, there's a lot of variables, right? Like, is the hotel going to be quiet? Is this it would whatever's going on surrounding the hotel, is that going to be quiet? I'm a big I like quiet, especially when I come off of set and it's time to like rest for the night. I really, really like quiet and peace. Is the bed going to be comfortable? Are the blackout curtains? There's like all these things. So the hotel was incredibly comfortable. Um, the setting was really peaceful and serene. Just, Door County. It was just really just felt very calm. Um, and because everybody worked so well together on set, and because of the leadership that John brought to the set, it was not a high stress environment at all. It was very low stress. Um, so yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it's like the least stressful project that I've ever done. So that alone makes it rank very highly. And I'll say that because I grew up in a rural area, and because I grew up, it was a small town. I have a soft spot in my heart for any project, movie, TV show, whatever, that takes place in a smaller setting.
Yeah.
It's just I'm really drawn to stories like that, whether it's rural or not. But I'm really drawn to stories that are set in that kind of environment, and characters who just have a more grounded, humble experience. And so that also made it rank really high for me. And I'm grateful that I got to step into Mitch's shoes. And also, one thing I do want to say is that my character, Mitch Henrikson, is actually based in the fishery that his family owns and runs in the movie is based on a real family in Door County who runs a fishery. So that was also cool. Not based on a singular person, but just like the family name Henrikson is actually a family name in Door County, and they own and operate a fishery there. So that was also really cool. It was like really paying homage to this long-standing business and a local family there. So I also really enjoyed that about the role.
Great. So, the last question, talking about your future project, there's some future projects of yours, next project you can share about.
So nothing too specific that I can share about. But I can say, I'm working on some music right now, some writing. I have a band called Love Color, We're an alternative pop duo. I think we'll be releasing some new music in 2026, and then aside from that, I'm also working on some co-writes with some other artists. There's an incredible Nigerian artist named AK Centric. He and I are cooking up something pretty cool. And then on the film side, I'm getting ready to go off to New York soon to work on something. And then there I think there's a really cool action movie coming up in the not too distant future for me, which is something I'm really excited about because I action is something that I've done a little bit of in the past, and I definitely want to do more of it. So yeah, I think 2026 is going to be a great year. A lot of exciting creative things coming up.
Amazing. So, this is it. Make sure all of you to go to a Wisconsin Christmas Pie on Great American Pure Flix. And thank you, Ryan, to join us today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a
It's great
pleasure for
to be here
me.
and talk with you.
For me too. And thank you all for watching. Bye.
Okay. Bye, Desiree. Thanks.